2025 versus 1961, a new era of simplified taxation. आज मैं आपके साथ एक नए दौर की कहानी शेयर करने जा रहा हूं, द स्टोरी ऑफ हाउ आर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट ऑफ 1961, a law older than many of us here, is being reinvented as an income tax act of 2025. The 1961 act served us well for over 60 years, लेकिन अब समय आ गया है कि पुरानी किताब को रिटायर करके एक नई किताब से शुरुआत करें. It's time to retire the old book and start with a new one. I promise to keep this talk witty yet insightful so that you not only understand the substantive changes but also try to enjoy the journey. We'll mix a bit of Hindi and English, true English, to keep things simple and relatable. By the end of this session, you'll have a clear picture of why the new Act 2025 was needed, section wise comparisons of key provisions in the 1961 Act versus the 2025 Act, some fun mnemonics to remember the transitions so yaad karna easy ho jayega, you'll remember things easily, an understanding of the recent developments that shaped the new law, insights on how the new act simplifies and modernizes our tax system, and pointers on professional opportunities this change opens up for CAs, CFOs and financial advisors, because हर नए कानून में प्रोफेशनल्स के लिए नए मौके छुपे होते हैं. Every new law hides new opportunities for us. And I am only a student of income tax, not an expert. So please, अगर मेरे से कोई गलती हो तो please मुझे बताना. I will rectify it. चलिए शुरू करते हैं. Let's begin. But before that, a disclaimer: these include only the recent developments up to December 2025. So why was a new income tax act needed? Some might ask, why fix what isn't broken? But the truth is, by 2025, the Income Tax Act 1961 had become a Dadi Amma ke zamane ka law, a law from grandma's time, outdated, bloated, and unwieldy. Here's the reality check. It was enormous and had too much complexity. The 1961 Act kept growing and growing over the decades. From its modest beginnings, it swelled over to 800 plus sections if you include sections, subsections, provisos, and explanations by 2025. Yes, 800 plus. Imagine explaining all that to a client without breaking a sweat. Frequent amendments via finance acts each year led so many definitions, provisos, and exceptions that it became hard to navigate even for routine filings. It was like a mansion with too many extensions and secret rooms. Even the architects got lost. There were too many obsolete provisions. Many provisions were irrelevant to the modern economy. The law was born in an era of typewriters and ledger books. By 2025, we are talking cryptocurrencies and e-commerce. Naturally, there was a mismatch. The old law stretched itself with patches to cover digital transactions and global incomes, but fundamentally, it still carried the DNA of a 1960s law. कई पुराने सेक्शंस तो ऐसे थे जैसे टेलीग्राम सर्विस, अब उनका कोई काम नहीं, फिर भी लॉ में छिपके बैठे थे. Many old sections were like the telegram service, no longer useful, yet still hanging around in the law. There was high litigation and ambiguity. The language of 1961 Act was classic old school legalese. जब अंग्रेजी भी हिंदी जैसी मुश्किल लगती थी, English provisions were so complex they felt like a foreign language. Ambiguous drafting led to conflicting interpretations which fueled lots of disputes and court cases. Result: a backlog of cases and uncertainty. Tax professionals often joke that for every two tax professionals, you get three opinions on a section's interpretation. The way the business is done today, digital payments, cryptocurrencies, global startups, gig economy, ये सब concepts 1961 Act के सभी में कहाँ थे? Those concepts didn't exist in 1961. The old law tried to adapt through ad hoc provisions, but it remained rooted in paper era structures. For example, handling of e-commerce, income or digital assets felt like trying to fit a smartphone into a typewriter case. The digital reality outgrew the law. Recognizing these issues, the government decided a simple patchwork won't do. अब पुराने स्वेटर में और पैच नहीं लगाना, नया स्वेटर बुनना पड़ेगा. So a comprehensive rewrite was taken up. In fact, a direct tax code was in discussion for years. And finally, the efforts bore fruit in 2025. The Income Tax Number 2 Bill 2025 was introduced, incorporating feedback from experts and a select committee. After debates and refinements, 285 refinements and 32 major changes by the select committee, to be exact, it was passed by the parliament in August 2025. The new act received presidential assent in August 2025, but it comes into effect from 1st of April 2026. That means assessment year 26-27 onwards. The income tax returns will be as per the new act, though FY 25-26 income is the first governed by it. There is a transition period. For example, returns filed up to AY 26-27 still follow the old 1961 Act, giving everyone time to adjust. In summary, the 1961 Act was like an old ambassador car, sturdy but पिछले 60 साल से same design. The 2025 Act is a new electric SUV, modern, efficient and suited for today's roads. Of course, नई गाड़ी को चलाने के लिए थोड़ा मैनुअल भी नया होगा. A new car comes with a new manual, which is why understanding the changes is crucial. And don't worry, tax rates haven't suddenly shot up or anything. The aim was simplification, not raising taxes. So take a deep breath. This surgery was to cure complexity, not to give taxpayers a heart attack. Now, I like to decode the 2025 Act by a cool mnemonic called the Simple Philosophy, SIMPLE. Literally, the guiding principles spell simple. Ironic for a tax law, huh? But it truly is designed to be simpler. Here's what simple stands for. S stands for streamlined. The law has been slimmed down from 800 plus sections to 536 sections, and from 47 chapters to 23 chapters, making it leaner and more navigable. It's arranged logically with plain language drafting to minimize heavy legal jargon, redundant provisions that dead would have been chopped off. Think of it as a much needed diet plan for the Income Tax Act. I stands for integrated. Related provisions that were previously scattered all over have now been consolidated together. This reduces endless cross references. For example, all those TDS sections from 192 to 194T are now merged into section 393 in the new Act, presented in a neat tabular form. Similarly, explanations and provisos, which were often lengthy footnotes to sections, have been absorbed into section text as subsections for clarity. Also, the law is structured keeping e-filing in mind, meaning forms and provisions align better for a digital interface. M stands for minimize litigation. Clearer language plus better structure equals fewer disputes. Although, in my humble opinion, the disputes will increase post this new act. But okay, the government intends to clarify procedures and define thresholds to close the loopholes that led to interpretational differences. By removing ambiguities, it narrows the scope for many point ऐसे interpret किया department ने वैसे किया scenarios. They want fewer court trips for taxpayers and the department. We'll see some specific examples of this intent soon, like how DRP rulings must now come within regions spelled out. P stands for practical. The law is designed with practical compliance in mind. It aligns compliance requirements with what taxpayers, especially small businesses and professionals, can realistically do. For instance, if a procedure was too cumbersome in the old law, they have tried to simplify it or make it more user-friendly. The goal is to make life easier for the honest taxpayer. A simple example is allowing refund claims even return filing is delayed. Even if return filing is delayed, a relief for those who miss deadlines. We'll discuss this in detail later. Coming to the L part, learn and adapt. The new code is structured such that it's future ready. Emerging income streams like digital assets, new financial instruments can be slotted into framework without having to rewrite the whole law. The drafters intended a law that can learn and adapt with changing times, so we hopefully don't need another complete overhaul for many decades. Is built with an update friendly mindset. Modular बनाया है ताकि plug and play हो जाए नए provisions जब आए. E stands for efficient, embracing technology for efficiency. The act pushes for faceless digital first administration across the board. More processes will be handled online with minimal human interface, from assessments to appeals. It's efficient in two ways: speeds up processing, imagine faster refunds, quicker correspondence, and reduces scope for rent seeking or bias. Since computer को आप मिठाई का डब्बा नहीं दे सकते, you can't bribe a computer. The act explicitly provides powers to government to introduce new tech-driven schemes for greater transparency and accountability. In short, the vision was to translate tax law into something simple, streamlined, integrated, minimal litigation, practical, learning, efficient. बात है टैक्स लॉ की, पर अप्रोच सिलिकॉन वैली जैसा है, मूव फास्ट एंड फिक्स थिंग्स. इट्स अ टैक्स लॉ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, बट द अप्रोच इज ऑलमोस्ट सिलिकॉन वैली लाइक, agile and user focused. Keep this simple mantra in mind as we explore specific changes. I'll help you see why certain provisions changed the way they have been done. With all responsibility, I am quoting Mr. Arvind Datar, who's one of the great advocates the country has, and he, in a seminar, had clearly stated that you can have new laws wherein you can, you know, place the sections in a different way. You can change the numbers, but ultimately, it's all up to the tax administration. In our country, as he stated, it's not my view, it's his view, that the tax administration is not investor friendly. And he said that he was talking to global CEOs whom he represents in the highest courts, and all of them tell him that, sir, our 5% of the revenue comes from India, but 95% of the litigation comes from India. So we are not that much interested in investing in India just because the tax administration is equivalent to tax terrorism. He quoted one example stating that one of his clients in south of India had a turnover of 10,000 crores. It was a foreign entity, and the GST, or I think the VAT officer, came to the premises and he asked for all the invoices of sales and purchase. The company requested, given the scale and size of operations, that the officer may take some samples. So the officer did not pay heed to that fact and he added the whole sales, treating them as interstate sales or without form sales or something like that. And he put a 14% flat VAT on those sales. This did not end here. This was the first blow. Then came the Income Tax Act, which did not income tax officers who treated this sales as bogus sales, and it added it back to the computation of income. The end result was that this company, which was doing 10,000 crores of revenue in India, actually left the country. So it's food for thought, and I am hopeful. And let's see whether this new act brings a fresh lease of life in the tax administration. And I genuinely hope that the pending litigations will be faster, especially at the CIT appeals level. We are seeing considerable progress at the ITAT, and they are genuinely trying to resolve cases faster. But we genuinely want a strong board of advanced ruling. We genuinely want a strong DRP. We genuinely want a faster and a more efficient CIT appeals. And as someone who practices international tax, we want faster APAs, faster MAPs, so that we can move towards tax certainty. I'll be explaining all these structural changes, all small, big changes in my upcoming videos. So please stay tuned. Thank you. And thank you for watching this. This is CA Pranav Goel, your tax guide. Thank you so much.